What are the crucial skills for a modern HR professional? In the workplace, it now seems you need everything from commercial awareness, influencing skills, through to data analytics. So let's discover what are the key competencies you need to develop to be the full stack HR professional. Welcome to Talking HR Trends with Natal and Tom. I'm Natal Dank.
And I'm Tom Haak.
And we explore the latest hot topics and business challenges impacting the people side of organisations. Stick around to the end for our practical top tip. And if you like this discussion, please subscribe. Okay, Tom, we're going to explore what makes the modern HR professional and look at the key competencies someone that's trying to get into this job would need to develop, and also how could someone start to progress their career in HR through to being a HR leader.
We should be a little bit careful not to talk too much about the HR professional, because I think the HR professional does not exist. But there are, of course, some basic competency skills you expect of every HR professional. One is a real good interest and knowledge, you could even say passion, for the organization and the clients of the organization. Secondly, it's about methodology. Yes, you should know your methodology basics and your analytics basics. That's important in every job. 3, agile methodologies. And that's your area, but the combination of agile and design thinking, I think every HR professional needs that in her or his basket. 4, a good understanding of technology. Technology is a driver of the transformation, and you should not stand on the side and say, yeah, technology, that's not my area. No, you should be able to understand technology and be able to ask the right questions.
And when you say knowing the client, you mean sort of the end customer of an organization?
Absolutely, the end client. So not the internal client, but the external client, because often the distance between HR and the final clients of the organization is too far away. And that can result in too inward looking, too much looking at HR and not considering for everything, hey, but what are the benefits for the client? Why are we doing this?
I often talk about this idea of HR needs to help people be great in their job. So then you see value flow through the business to that end customer. And we need to understand that value stream, don't we? That
Absolutely.
flow through the business. Yeah. And then I think there's a bit around this sort of organizational design and development. So getting a sense of how do you start to build organizations for the different business contexts in which you operate. But a lot of this links into this term, the full stack. And this comes from software development, where if someone can work across both the front end and back end of software development, they're considered the full stack professional. So I was wondering, if you took this concept into the world of HR, people and culture, does this mean perhaps the end of this old split that we had of the generalist, which was sort of more front of house, consulting, working with the business, and then the specialist, which was considered years ago more back of house, you did the designing and the developing that would then be sort of implemented out through the generalist roles?
I have some objection against the term the full stack, because that kind of, if you don't have the full stack, well, you can't be a good HR professional, and I don't know. So
True.
even with
bit limiting,
even with a little bit of the stack, but you can do a good job. But I think it's both. So you need to know all kinds of different disciplines, but it also helps if you have depth. Because just being a generalist, that doesn't help either. And then you get to your T profile, basically saying, you know many elements of the stack, but you also have depth. And because with depth, you can add a lot of value to the organization.
Yeah. And do you see that those depths are the ones that we have known for a while in HR? What are sort of some of the key ones that come to mind for you?
For example, a depth can be operational excellence, not knowing how to really serve, what service means to people in the
Yes.
organization. So
Yeah.
efficiency, service, hospitality, that could be
Yeah.
one of those elements. Another one is
Yeah.
really being kind of empathic, understanding
Yes.
people, being able to
Yeah.
relate people, being able to coach people. That could be one of those elements. Another one is really yeah, you could say the architectural skills, depths in
Yes.
architecture. Because
Yeah.
I know my tools, but I can really create something fantastic with that.
I would like to now move to the competencies and the skills, the behaviors that a HR professional needs to start to be mindful of to develop, ideally strategically over time, if they want to become a HR leader. And you yourself has been a HR director.
Two things are most important. One is back to really being very close to the organization and the business, understanding what do we want, where do we want to go, because then you can start to think about how can we contribute from a people organization perspective. Secondly, and I call them often HR architects, it's knowing your material. Yeah, you should have an in-depth knowledge of all the possible building blocks of an impactful HR strategy. And
Yes.
an architect knows all those materials and knows what works,
Yes.
what does not work. So that's the second
Yeah.
element.
Yeah.
The third element is probably because if you have both of that, you are still probably not able to really have impact because you have to be able to influence the organization.
Yes.
You have to be able to influence your team. That's probably the easiest part. You have to be able to influence the wide people who are connected to the organization, and you have to work with the people in charge, the top of the organization, influence them,
Yeah.
have impact there, stand for what you want, and that's often a difficult part. That leads to the fourth element. That is, you have to also to be independent. You have to be independent because if you're independent, then you can really add value. And if you make yourself too dependent, for example, of your boss or your bosses, yeah, then you become vulnerable and you cannot be totally effective.
The advocate for the employee in the organization. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the advocate for the employee, but also the advocate for the profession, for example. So
Yeah.
bringing
True.
saying,
Yeah.
well, we have learned some things in, for example, social sciences. That some things don't work. Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to stand also for your profession, but
Yeah.
advocate of the people is becoming more and more important.
Definitely.
And being also, you could say we've talked about that earlier as well, that the element of ethical leadership, saying, well, some
Yes.
things, and
Yes.
we have to contribute. What are we contributing to make the world a better place? How do we make
Yeah.
sure the lives of people in our organization and the lives of people outside the organization are becoming better? So it's a
Yeah.
huge role, super important role.
So Tom talked about the T shape, and that will be our practical tip. How do you start to develop your T shape specifically in HR? So to remember, the horizontal is your general capability, and then the vertical is your deep specialism. Let's look at the horizontal first. Can I get you to identify one general capability that you already have? It might be good commercial awareness. It could be good influencing skills. It might be good at consulting. So recognize one general capability that you already have. Now let's recognize a specialism. So this could be something like learning and development or talent and recruitment. So identify that deep specialism. Now, let's think about developing this T shape and think of one general capability you would like to develop further. So, this might be agile tools and mindset. This might be building a product mindset. This might be actually, I think I need to get better at building my network and building relationships. What is a general capability that's really going to take your skills and your impact to the next level and really start to move you forward as a great modern HR professional? Thanks for your time today. This was Talking HR Trends with Natal and Tom. If you find this discussion valuable, please subscribe. Thank you.